How's it hanging, people? I'm Nick, a solo game dev working on a hand-drawn Metroidvania game called Aestik. I've been documenting the development of the game for a while now, so it might be interesting for you to check out my other devlogs too. And you can always subscribe to not miss out on future devlogs. Let's start this video off with a big fat spoiler alert. I recently did a poll on YouTube to kinda get a feel for what I should show in my videos, and the majority of the viewers don't mind spoilers, but of course there are people who do, so I will make a disclaimer when I talk about stuff like that. Today I'll talk about one of the bosses you face in the halls of nature. I'll go over the fight, its creation, and a tiny little bit into the lore, so be warned. So let's talk about the planning process of the boss. My plan for the end boss of the area is to create two bosses. Depending on the actions you take, you will either face one or the other. As I plan to make another video when the second boss is finished, I will only talk about the general of nature in this one. You might have seen this guy in the previous devlog, but that shouldn't be spoilery. He's an NPC you meet in the halls of nature, but if you take a certain action, he will fight you. My plan was to make a quite hard boss that constantly keeps you on your toes and rewards patience. Conversely, greedy players will be punished. As you might already have realized, he's the leader of the guards of nature. His armor resembles the one of the spear guards, but is much fancier, and he uses a mighty glaive instead of a spear. He's also much taller and more intimidating. So let's talk about the production process. As always, the main effort of creating an enemy or boss for Aestik lies in the animation process. And the more detailed the design is, the more time consuming this process will be. And even though I still kept it somewhat simple, it's basically a more detailed version of the spear guard, and well, that took me a while. Let's make a list of the animations I had to do for the character. First, I've had to do a passive idle animation, which was easy since I already did this for the NPC, then an intro animation, an active idle animation, a slash attack, a dash attack, the surrender animation, the death animation, and the animation of the slash effects. Fortunately, there was no walk cycle required for this boss fight, so that saved me a solid 8 frames. Let's talk about the implementation and the fight itself. When creating a new boss, I always open up my boss fight test scene in the project, so that's what I did first. I then imported all of the art assets into the project, created the different animations and connected them in the animator component. I then started crafting the fight itself. When you trigger the boss fight, an intro animation will play. It's a sort of on-guard pose the general does, which shows that he's an honorable warrior. He then will start his attack patterns. Let's talk about the slash attack first. After a wind-up animation, the glaive will get a hitbox that hurts you. At the same time, the slash effects object will be instantiated using an animation event to execute the function at the exact frame. A little side note, that's also how I make sound effects play at the right time. The slash object then moves across the arena and gets destroyed off screen after 3 seconds. That way the scene won't get overloaded after a while. You should always destroy projectiles and stuff like that after a while, it's for your own good. The second attack is the dash attack. Like the spear guards, the general dashes with his glaive pointing forward. He covers the whole ground doing his attack and even launches a magic projectile at the same time. It's the same kind of projectile the magic guards use. When he dashes, the glaive's hitbox gets activated and moved in the right position. To move the general himself, I created an empty game object and made it apparent to the general. I then gave it its own animator component and created movement by doing a root motion animation. Of course I could have achieved the same results using code, but it was much faster this way, and cheating a little is always a good thing in game dev. Please don't take this advice into your relationship. That's a bad thing. Thanks. Well, let's look at the attack patterns more in depth. My goal was that the general of nature controls the battlefield. He doesn't chase you down, but attacks from a safe distance while the player is trying to find openings to deal damage. The attack patterns are semi-random. First, he does the slash attack 2 to 5 times. Then he does the dash attack 2 to 3 times. When he does the slash attack only 2 times, he's guaranteed to do the dash attack 3 times. On the other hand, when he does the slash attack 5 times, he's guaranteed to do the dash attack only 2 times. I created this logic by using a counter that goes down by 1 point every attack he does. The first few points are slash attack only, then there's 1 point where he can do either one or the other attack, and the last 2 points are dash attack only. When the counter reaches 0, you have a few seconds to attack the general until he's attacking you again. When he has only 1 health point left, he will accept his defeat and leave himself open for the final blow. A small detail that adds to his honorable character. So that's the whole fight summarized. I'm really happy with the result. It's a challenging but fair fight, and once you find your openings, it really feels well choreographed. So there are a few things left to do, so let's talk about them. Of course I needed to start the boss music once the fight started and end it once the boss was defeated. For now I used the theme for the previous boss fights, but I will create a theme for the halls of nature bosses. I also needed to spawn some coins as a reward for defeating the general, as well as opening and closing the gates to close the arena while the fight takes place. Last but not least, I had to make sound effects. For the first time I didn't use my own voice. I asked my little brother to help me, which he gladly did. Thanks for that. I think that he did a great job while he probably heard his vocal cords. That's dedication. For the attack sound effects, I used a fanny pack and edited the recordings in Ableton to give them some spice. I actually record all of my sound effects that way and it works astonishingly well. I recommend trying it out over just downloading free sounds from the internet. It's really fun. You can also use free software like Audacity, of course. So before we close things off, let's take a look at the fight in-game. Well, that's about it. Please feel free to write in the comments what you did or did not like about the fight or the devlog in general. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in this video, I'm happy to answer them as well. And if you want to play the official Aestik demo, feel free to join the Discord server. There's a link in the description. And don't forget to leave your wife, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell.